My sister tried to ruin my wedding, so I used her ex to destroy hers. My sister standing at the altar in her $8,000 designer gown, waiting for her perfect fairy tale moment, when suddenly the church doors burst open. Her ex-boyfriend walks in. The one she claimed never meant anything, carrying a folder that would unravel every lie she'd ever told. The look on her face? Priceless. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how we got there. Welcome to Revenge Treats, where we serve up stories of ultimate payback. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old. And for most of my life, I believed that if I just kept being the good sister, the one who always compromised, always forgave, always put family first, I'd finally earn the love and respect I deserved from my family. I couldn't have been more wrong. Have you ever had a sibling who seemed to get away with everything while you took the blame? Drop a comment and let me know. I read them all. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Revenge Treats, because, trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Growing up, I was what you'd call the responsible one. While my younger sister Emma got to be the free spirit, the creative one, the family darling, I was the one who cleaned up her messes, literally and figuratively. When she crashed Dad's car at 17, I lent her my savings to help with the deductible, so she wouldn't get in trouble. When she dropped out of college, I was the one who convinced our parents to give her just one more chance. When she needed a place to stay after her third failed relationship, guess whose couch she lived on for? 8 months? But here's the thing. I didn't mind. I loved my sister. We were only 2 years apart, and despite everything, I genuinely believed we were close. I thought all those late-night conversations, all the times I'd covered for her, all the sacrifices I'd made were building something real between us. Emma had always been the golden child. She was beautiful, charming, and had this way of making everyone fall in love with her within minutes. She was an aspiring influencer with about 50,000 followers on Instagram. Not huge, but enough to make her feel like a celebrity. Our parents ate up every carefully curated post, every spontaneous photo shoot, every brand collaboration she managed to land. Meanwhile, I was the steady one. I had a good job as a marketing manager, owned my own apartment, and had been in a stable relationship with my fiancé David for 4 years. But somehow, Emma's chaos always seemed more interesting to our family than my stability. The warning signs were always there, but I ignored them. Like how she'd accidentally schedule her big events on the same days as mine. How she'd show up to my work parties and somehow become the center of attention. How she had a way of turning every conversation back to herself, even when it was supposed to be about me, but I kept making excuses. She's just insecure, I'd tell David when he pointed out her behavior. She needs the attention more than I do. I genuinely believed that if I just kept being supportive, kept putting her needs first, she'd eventually return that love and loyalty. The betrayal came exactly 6 weeks before my wedding. I'd been planning this day for over a year. Every detail, carefully chosen. Every vendor personally selected. Every moment designed to be perfect. David and I had saved for 3 years to afford our dream wedding at the historic Rosewood Manor, complete with garden ceremony and ballroom reception for 150 guests. Emma had been my maid of honor, naturally. She'd helped me choose my dress, plan my bachelorette party, and even offered to handle some of the final details since she had more free time than I did. I was so grateful. Finally, I thought, she was really showing up for me the way I'd always shown up for her. The discovery happened on a Tuesday evening. I'd gone to Emma's apartment to drop off the final bridesmaid dress alterations when I heard her voice through the door. She was on a phone call, and something in her tone made me pause before knocking. "Trust me, it's going to be perfect," she was saying, her voice bright with excitement. "I've already contacted most of the vendors, and they're all willing to switch. Sarah's wedding is going to be a disaster, and mine will be everything she thought hers would be." My blood turned to ice. I pressed my ear closer to the door. The photographer, the florist, the caterer. I told them all that there was a family emergency and that the wedding needed to be moved to 2 weeks later. Since I'm the maid of honor, they believed me completely. And get this, I'm using the exact same venue. Rosewood Manor had a cancellation for the weekend after Sarah's original date, and I snatched it up immediately. There was a pause. Then, cruel laughter. She's going to show up to her dream wedding and find out that half her vendors are no-shows because they think they're working my wedding instead. Can you imagine her face? All those uptight little plans. Ruined. And then, 2 weeks later, I'll have the exact same wedding she wanted, but better. More Instagram-worthy. More me. The person on the other end must have asked about the cost, because Emma continued, "Oh, that's the best part. I've been using the credit card she gave me for emergency wedding expenses to put deposits down on everything. She's literally paying for her own wedding to be sabotaged and for mine to be perfect. God, I'm brilliant." I stumbled backward from the door, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the dress bag. 3 years of saving. A year of planning. My dream day. And she was systematically destroying it while making me pay for my own humiliation. But it got worse. As I stood there in shock, I heard her say the words that shattered what was left of my heart. "Honestly, Rachel, I don't know why everyone thinks Sarah is so put together. She's always been pathetic. Always trying so hard to be perfect. Always needing everyone's approval. This wedding is just another one of her desperate attempts to prove she's worth something. Well, now everyone will see what I've always known, that she's just a boring, basic little girl who thinks she deserves things she hasn't earned. The spotlight was always meant for me." I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, processing the magnitude of her betrayal. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about our entire relationship. Every time I'd helped her, every sacrifice I'd made, every moment I'd thought we were bonding, she'd seen it as weakness, as pathetic desperation. She'd stolen not just my wedding, but my trust, my memories, my belief in our family bond. And she was enjoying every second of it. I could have burst through that door. I could have screamed, confronted her, demanded explanations. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Or maybe it was the sudden, crystal-clear realization that confronting Emma directly would only give her the chance to manipulate the situation, to play victim, to turn our parents against me like she'd done so many times before. Instead, I quietly left the dress bag by her door and drove home in a daze. That night, I didn't tell David what I'd discovered. I couldn't find the words. How do you explain that your sister, your maid of honor, has spent months systematically sabotaging the most important day of your life while making you pay for it? I did call some of the vendors the next morning, pretending I needed to confirm some details. Sure enough, 3 of my key vendors, the photographer, the florist, and the baker, had notes in their systems about schedule changes requested by the bride's sister. The photographer even said, "I'm so sorry about the family. Emergency, by the way." Emma explained everything. The financial damage was even worse than I'd imagined. When I checked the credit card I'd given Emma for emergency expenses, I found over $15,000 in charges, deposits for a second venue, a second photographer, even a second dress. She'd been building her dream wedding on my dime while destroying mine. When I finally told David that evening, I watched his face cycle through disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like pity. Not for Emma, but for me. "Sarah," he said gently, "how did you not see this coming? The signs were all there. He wasn't wrong, and that made it hurt even more. For 3 days I was a mess. I barely slept, couldn't eat, and spent hours staring at my wedding dress hanging in the closet, wondering if I should just cancel everything and elope. The betrayal felt so deep, so complete, that I questioned everything about myself. Had I really been as pathetic as Emma said? Was I just a desperate people-pleaser who'd never learned to stand up for herself? David was incredible during this time, but I could see the concern in his eyes. Not just about the wedding, but about me. About whether I would ever find the strength to fight back, or if I'd just let Emma walk all over me for the rest of our lives. The turning point came on Friday evening. I was sitting in my car outside my parents' house, trying to work up the courage to go inside and tell them what Emma had done, when I saw her pull into the driveway. She got out of her car laughing, talking on her phone, completely carefree. "I know, right?" she was saying. "It's going to be so perfect. Sarah's going to be so embarrassed, and everyone will see that I'm the one who really knows how to throw a party. I can't wait to see the look on her face." That's when it hit me. She wasn't just planning to humiliate me. She was excited about it. She was genuinely looking forward to watching me suffer on what should have been the happiest day of my life. Something shifted inside me at that moment. The hurt was still there, but underneath it, a cold, clear anger began to crystallize. Emma had spent our entire lives taking advantage of my love for her. But this time, she'd gone too far. This time, there would be consequences. I didn't go inside that night. Instead, I drove home and started planning. The first thing I did was call my friend Jessica, who worked in private investigation. "I need you to dig up everything you can on Emma," I told her. "Financial records, social media history, dating, history, everything." "Sarah," Jessica said carefully, "what exactly are you planning?" "Justice," I replied. Over the next week, while Emma thought she was getting away with the perfect crime, I was methodically rebuilding my wedding and gathering ammunition for hers. I managed to book new vendors, some even better than my originals, and I quietly had the locks changed on my account so Emma couldn't cause any more financial damage. But more importantly, Jessica's investigation was yielding some very interesting results about my dear sister's past. Meanwhile, Emma was in full victim mode with our parents. She'd started dropping hints about how stressed she was about the wedding planning, how much pressure I was putting on her as maid of honor. She even posted on Instagram about how hard it was to support someone through their big day while managing your own life. The comments were exactly what she wanted. "You're such a good sister. Sarah is so lucky to have you. You're an angel for putting up with all that bridezilla behavior." Bridezilla behavior. Me, the woman who was quietly rebuilding her entire wedding while her sister spent her money on a duplicate event designed to humiliate her. Emma had no idea that I knew about her plan. She kept playing the role of supportive maid of honor, even offering to help with last-minute details as the wedding approached. She'd text me daily with fake concern. "How are you feeling? Any last-minute nerves? Don't worry, everything will be perfect." The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. 2 weeks before my wedding, Emma announced her engagement to Marcus, a guy she'd been dating for all of 3 months. The engagement photos were professionally shot by my original photographer, I noticed, and the announcement mentioned that they'd be having their wedding soon after Sarah's, to keep the celebration going in the family. Our parents were over the moon. Finally, both their daughters would be married within weeks of each other. It would be such a special time for the family. If only they knew. This is where Jessica's investigation became pure gold. It turns out Emma had quite the romantic history, including a very serious relationship with someone named Alex that had ended just 6 months before she started dating Marcus. Alex wasn't just any ex-boyfriend. He was a wedding photographer, a very talented one who'd been planning to propose to Emma before she suddenly ghosted him and moved on to Marcus. According to the social media deep dive Jessica had done, Alex was still pretty bitter about how things had ended, especially since Emma had told everyone that their relationship never meant anything. More importantly, Alex had photographed several weddings at Rosewood Manor. He knew the venue, the staff, and had been particularly hurt when Emma booked her wedding there, the same place he'd planned to propose to her. I reached out to Alex through a mutual friend, and we met for coffee. He was handsome, professional, and clearly still wounded by Emma's betrayal. When I explained what Emma had done to my wedding, his expression darkened. "That sounds exactly like her," he said. "She destroyed our relationship the same way, systematically, deliberately, while making me think everything was fine." "I have a proposition," I told him. "How would you like to help me give Emma exactly what she deserves?" Alex smiled for the first time during our conversation. "I'm listening." The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Alex would show up at Emma's wedding as a vendor, ostensibly there to photograph the event as a backup photographer. But what he'd really be doing was documenting everything for a very different purpose. See, Jessica's investigation had uncovered something else interesting about Emma's finances. All those vendor deposits she'd made using my credit card? Technically, that was fraud. And all those social media posts about sabotaging my wedding while pretending to be the supportive sister. That was evidence of intentional emotional distress, and possibly harassment. But the real kicker was what we discovered about Marcus. Turns out, he had no idea about Emma's true financial situation. She'd been presenting herself as successful and independent, but in reality, she was thousands of dollars in debt, had terrible credit, and was essentially living off the money she'd stolen from me, and small amounts she'd borrowed from various friends and family members. Marcus was a good guy, a software engineer who valued honesty and financial responsibility. He'd been planning to merge their finances after the wedding, and had no idea what he was signing up for. My wedding day arrived, and it was absolutely perfect. Better than I'd originally planned, actually, because the new vendors I'd booked went above and beyond to make up for the mix-up with the original bookings. David and I exchanged vows in front of our closest friends and family, and for the first time in weeks, I felt pure joy. Emma played her role flawlessly, posting pictures throughout the day with captions like, "So proud of my beautiful sister," and "Best maid of honor duties ever." She had no idea that her own wedding day was about to become a disaster of epic proportions. 2 weeks later, Emma's wedding day arrived. She looked stunning, I'll give her that. The dress was gorgeous. The venue was decorated perfectly, with vendors I'd originally booked and paid deposits for, and she was absolutely glowing with the satisfaction of her successful revenge plot. What she didn't expect was Alex walking into the church just as the ceremony was about to begin. "Emma," he called out, his voice carrying clearly through the sanctuary. "We need to talk." The look on her face was everything I'd dreamed it would be. Shock, terror, and the dawning realization that her perfect day was about to become a nightmare. "Alex, what are you doing here?" she stammered. "I'm here to return something you forgot," he said, holding up a folder. "Your honesty. What happened next was better than any movie." Alex proceeded to read, in front of 200 wedding guests, a detailed account of Emma's deception. He had copies of the social media posts she'd made about sabotaging my wedding. He had bank statements showing the fraudulent charges on my credit card. He had screenshots of text messages between Emma and various vendors, pretending to be me and making changes to my wedding plans. But the piece de resistance was the financial report Jessica had compiled. Alex handed it directly to Marcus, who was standing at the altar in complete shock. "Marcus," Alex said, "I thought you should know exactly who you're marrying. Emma is currently $47,000 in debt, has defaulted on multiple loans, and has been committing credit card fraud against her sister to pay for this wedding. The woman you think is successful and independent has been lying to you about every aspect of her financial life." The church was dead silent, except for the sound of Emma's panicked breathing. Marcus looked at the papers, then at Emma, then back at the papers. "Is this true?" he asked quietly. Emma tried to lie, of course. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Alex was a crazy ex trying to ruin her day, that the financial documents were fake. But then Alex played his trump card. He pulled out his phone and played a recording, the same phone call I'd overheard that night at her apartment, where she'd bragged about sabotaging my wedding and called me pathetic. Emma's voice filled the church. Sarah's wedding is going to be a disaster, and mine will be everything she thought hers would be. She's always been pathetic. The spotlight was always meant for me. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus slowly removed his boutonniere and placed it on the altar. I can't marry someone who would do this to her own sister, he said, simply. Then he walked out of the church, followed by most of his family and friends. Emma was left standing at the altar in her $8,000 dress, surrounded by the ruins of her perfect day. The irony was exquisite. She'd wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone, and instead, she'd humiliated herself. The aftermath was swift and satisfying. Emma's social media career imploded when the story went viral. Alex had recorded the entire church scene, and it spread like wildfire. Turns out, people don't like influencers who commit fraud and sabotage their siblings' weddings. She lost most of her followers, her brand partnerships were canceled, and she became the subject of countless memes about karma and wedding disasters. The financial consequences were even more severe. She was forced to file for bankruptcy and had to move back in with our parents. Marcus, thankfully, was understanding when I reached out to apologize for Emma's behavior. We actually became friends, bonding over our shared experience of being deceived by someone we trusted. He's dating a lovely woman now, and they seem very happy. As for my relationship with Emma, it's complicated. She's never apologized. Not really. She still maintains that she was just trying to help, and that I overreacted. Our parents have tried to mediate, but I've learned to set boundaries. I no longer lend her money, cover for her mistakes, or put her needs above my own well-being. The most important lesson I learned was about my own worth. For years I'd believed that love meant sacrifice, that being a good sister meant accepting poor treatment. Emma's betrayal taught me that real love, the kind worth having, is built on mutual respect, not one-sided devotion. David and I are happier than ever. We learned to communicate better through this crisis, and our marriage is stronger because of it. We bought a house last year, and Emma is not welcome there. It's a boundary I never thought I'd have to set, but it's been liberating. Still see Emma at family gatherings, and she still tries to manipulate situations to her advantage. But now I see it clearly, and I don't get pulled into her drama. I've learned that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Emma made a choice to betray me in the cruelest way possible, and she faced the natural consequences of that choice. I didn't destroy her life. I simply made sure that the truth came to light at the most appropriate moment. Some people have asked if I feel guilty about ruining her wedding day. The answer is no. She spent months planning to ruin mine, and she succeeded partially. She did steal money from me. She did cause me weeks of stress and heartbreak, and she did damage relationships in our family that may never fully recover. What I gave her in return was honesty. I made sure that Marcus knew who he was marrying, that our family and friends knew what she was capable of, and that she faced real consequences for her actions. If anything, I did her a favor by stopping her from building a marriage on lies and fraud. The real victory wasn't seeing Emma humiliated at the altar. It was learning to value myself enough to fight back. For the first time in my life, I stood up to her manipulation, and it felt incredible. And that's how I served them a dish they never saw coming. Sometimes, the sweetest treat is justice served with a side of truth. What did you think of this serving of revenge? Would you have done anything differently? Or do you have a story where you had to cook up your own revenge treat? Dish it out in the comments below. I read them all. If you enjoyed this story and are hungry for more tales where the bill always comes due, make sure to devour that like button, subscribe to Revenge Treats, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next serving. Thanks for joining us at Revenge Treats, where payback is always on the menu.